Luka makes his debut for the Lakers. The Hornets are feeling stung by a deal gone wrong. The Mavs are bouncing fans from the arena instead of bouncing back in the standings. And which team in the East could challenge the Knicks, Cavs, and Celtics for conference supremacy in the postseason? That's all today on Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On NBA. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Doug Branson, host of Locked On Hornets and your Shot Clock Sherpa, guiding you through the NBA's biggest stories every day with the help of Locked On's local experts. And with me are two of Locked On's premier national NBA experts from the Locked On Nuggets podcast and senior writer for the Action Network. We have Matt Moore, and from the Locked On Bulls podcast, we have Hayes. Welcome to you both. Luka Doncic made his debut for the Los Angeles Lakers last night, scoring 14 points in a blowout Lakers win over the Utah Jazz. Locked On Lakers. If you squint your eyes, what do you see when James and Doncic are sharing the floor?
Like having two Magic Johnsons on the floor. Like that is essentially what the Lakers have, and you saw it quickly in this game. They just the level of ball movement and the quality of the shot creation. I understand they were playing the Utah Jazz, but these are guys who have not really even practiced together, and the Lakers were generating so many good looks, passing up good shots for great shots. The ability for between Luka and LeBron to extend all 24 seconds and still generate a good shot, where the Lakers before would get to about 16 and you could start feeling the panic about where is the shot going to come from. That's just not going to be the case. They're going to be able to find a shot through 24 seconds with these guys on the floor.
All right, Matt, should Luka's debut alleviate any concerns about on-court chemistry between LeBron and Luka?
I'm in a great mood, but I've got a lot built up in the brain, so I'm going to try and keep this dense and compact, okay? I never had concerns about the chemistry between Luka and LeBron. They're two extremely high basketball IQ players. They understand how to play the game the right way. Luka doesn't always make that decision. He prefers to dribble, shoot or pass. But together, they can really make the kind of combinations. I'm not worried about them figuring out the chemistry. That's not a concern for me. But more to the point, everyone raving, freaking out, doing all this stuff. And it's guys, you already had a good offense and you're playing the Utah Jazz. Anybody else does this, any other team adds a star, even a star like this, and it would just be yeah, no, it looks pretty good, exciting. But with the Lakers, is this the greatest offense of all time? And it's just can we just, you're playing the Jazz, man. The challenge is going to be, can they figure this stuff out long term? And they will, because they have Luka and freaking LeBron. But the offense was already great, Hayes. I wasn't worried about it. What did we really learn last night?
Yeah, I mean, I get the excitement just because, you have Luka Doncic. There's going to be a level of excitement if your team trades for Luka Doncic unexpectedly, to where you're going to have that little bit, oh, my God, look at this. But it was a solid debut. It was a really good debut. I love the time that they were on the court together and the minutes that they shared together, for sure. And there's of course, bones of how you can continue to build this thing out over time. But you are playing the Utah Jazz. Let's wait till I don't know what their schedule is off the top of my head. Let's wait till you come up against a better competition after the All-Star break and see what it's going to look like there. But this is a talented team, and having Luka Doncic on your team is already going to bring a certain level of creativity and everything. You add LeBron James to that, and hopefully, this may be why we're hearing that LeBron may end up staying with the Lakers long term and is open to that. I'm sure outside of the out of basketball things, being able to share a floor with somebody like Luka Doncic, as good as teammates that LeBron has had, he's never had a teammate like Luka. So it should be a reason for everybody to be excited.
So the Lakers are playing well right now. They're 6-1 in the last 2 weeks, but they've had periods this season where they looked completely lost. And on this show, we've talked a lot about how you could look at the numbers with LeBron on and off the floor, and the Lakers weren't particularly playing well with him on the floor. And Matt, you've sort of linked that a little bit, I think, with some of the turnovers that we've seen from LeBron, maybe some of the defensive lapses that we've seen from LeBron as he goes over the 40-year-old mark. how can Luka help alleviate any of those issues? Like, what's the issue that you look at and say, yeah, now that they have Luka, it could free up LeBron to do something or take some of the pressure off? Is there anything like that?
So the idea, I think, theoretically, is that Luka is able to take so much burden off of LeBron that he's able to manage his effort level. So bursts of effort rather than having to sustain it over the course of the game at 40 years old. That if he's able to just kind of level back and use it in more, I'm going to accelerate here, I'm going to play a little bit more solid defense, those types of things. But the problem is, we've seen in the past whenever a LeBron team has defensive concerns, he cheats up to try and help. That's his big problem, is that he'll play the corner guy and he'll try and roam free safety, and his man slips backdoor, gets an open corner three. A lot of this is just going to get to this point, which is the Utah Jazz are not able to actually challenge them whatsoever on the offensive end. Jackson Hayes had a great game last night. Good for Jackson Hayes. Do we think that that's going to be good enough once they start playing, I don't know, what's the word? Real NBA teams. Like, is that going to be good enough? Because I have a lot of questions. Offensively, though, look, there's a path here. The Nuggets were 18th in defensive rating when they made a run to the title. If the Lakers can just be not horrific, the offense is going to be that good. They do have shooters. They do have playmaking. They do have finishing. The offensive stuff I have zero concerns about.
And so I mentioned they were 6-1. They are 8th in offense this season, according to Cleaning the Glass, and it jumps to 4th best over the last 2 weeks. And they're also 3rd best to defense, according to Cleaning the Glass, over those 2 weeks. Hayes, bouncing off what Matt just said there, are we sure the Lakers can't challenge the Western Conference elite when we get into the postseason, if everyone's healthy?
I don't see it yet, and that just may be just my brain. I have to see it before I believe it. I do think this is going to be a team that could definitely, surprise the team, but I just still don't see them right now going to the Western Conference Finals or anything like that. But I can be convinced with more of a sample size. Right now, I think they're going to be a fun team to watch. They're going to have great creation. Luka's going to be able to keep that thing. And I think as the season goes on for them, Luka may take more of those ball handling responsibilities away from LeBron to where we're not seeing the turnovers. I think we even got 5 turnovers from LeBron last night, even with how good they looked on offense. So I think that thing's going to help balance it out. But I still look at the depth they have, the lack of depth, I should say, off the bench, and the concern that I have there. And I don't necessarily think they can contend with the West elite right now.
All right, coming up, we will talk about another Lakers deal that didn't happen between the Charlotte Hornets. Mark Williams was supposed to join the Lakers, but after a failed physical, he is no longer, or at least we think so. The Hornets may be challenging this thing. We'll get into it all on the other side here on Locked On NBA. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by Open Phone. Running a small business means you're wearing a lot of hats. A personal phone becomes a business phone, and suddenly customer calls are coming in day and night. As a team grows, managing everything with just one number becomes impossible, and that's where Open Phone comes in. It's the #1 business phone system designed to keep work and personal life separate. For just $15 a month, the cost of a few coffees, you can get complete transparency and visibility into everything happening with a business phone number. OpenPhone works through an app on a phone or computer and integrates with tools like HubSpot and hundreds of others. It also uses AI-powered call transcripts and summaries, providing a rundown of calls and action items the second that the call ends. Missed a call? No problem. Automated messages are sent directly to customers, ensuring no opportunity is missed. Right now, OpenPhone is offering 20% off the first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. That's OpenPhone.com/LockedOnNBA for 20% off 6 months. OpenPhone.com/LockedOnNBA and existing numbers with another service can be ported over at no extra charge. More Locked On NBA ahead. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Your favorite NBA team has a free and daily newsletter. Go to LockedOnDaily.com, subscribe. Stay up to date with local expert analysis and amazing writing from Katie Heindel, Mike Shearer, and Locked On Fantasy Basketball tips from Josh Lloyd. So one player that did not debut for the Lakers last night after a deadline deal was Mark Williams. The Lakers rescinded the trade with the Charlotte Hornets for Mark Williams after he reportedly failed a team physical over multiple issues. The Hornets quickly released a statement welcoming Mark back as their starting center, but last night, Shams Charania reported that behind the scenes, the Hornets are considering their options to challenge the cancellation of the deal with the league office. Here's my co-host of Locked On Hornets, Walker Mail, on the merits of such a challenge.
It doesn't feel like there's anything that can be done. It doesn't feel like they're going to get any compensation from this. So when I see this tweet come across my timeline, my immediate thought is, I hope the Hornets feel like they can win this. I hope the Hornets feel like they can actually get something, because if they really can't and they're just doing this to buck up to the Lakers for the simple fact that they are not one to be trifled with, that they are not one to be messed with, well then what is the end game? Is the end game just to let everybody know that you were in the right, that you did not have any knowledge and tried to trade of the failed physical, and you tried to trade damaged goods to the Lakers? Are you just doing it for the PR of it all? Because if so, I don't think it's necessarily worth it.
All right, what say you, Matt Hayes? It's rare enough for a deal to be rescinded in the NBA, but then to be challenged, which it hasn't officially been yet. It seems like the Hornets are weighing their options. Matt, what's going on here?
Clown shoes! Clown shoes everywhere! Everyone! Put on the red nose! Both of you! Rob Pelinka! Everyone in the Hornets front office! Honk, honk! Like, just go parade around in a clown car. What are you doing here? You are... Look, I get it. You had business. You had conducted it. And the Lakers, do your intel. Do the work. Like we said this yesterday. Do the intel work. That's your job, is to know what's going on. You could have there should have been nothing that shocked you. And if you really do believe that the Hornets were actually keeping something, that's, again, a failure on your part to do the intel you need to do. On the Hornets, you're screwing with these two. Dalton Knecht is a rookie trying to find his place in the NBA. Mark Williams is a young player trying to assert himself. You are ruining his confidence. You are messing with his career. You are messing with his career track for earnings. This is nonsense. Both of these teams need to get in a room and figure this out. This is stupid, beyond comprehension, Hayes.
Yeah, it's stupid. And I think that we got to look at one source to blame all this. That I feel like the Lakers actually watched Locked On Hornets and saw Doug talking about Mark Williams and said, you know what?
Don't put that evil on me.
This Doug guy isn't too high on Mark Williams. We probably should go ahead and rescind the trade. No, it's silly. All this is silly. Honestly, it just is. It should be so much better that's going on. But listen, if the Hornets feel like they have a legitimate thing here, a legitimate gripe here, they should do everything in their power to see what they can get done. I don't know if the NBA is not going to overturn anything or anything like this, but if anything does come of it positively, cool. You got that to look out for. But otherwise, kind of just is what it is.
Yeah, Hayes, should NBA teams have a wide latitude when it comes to physical evaluations of players that you traded for, particularly when you're giving up high-valued picks? Or should there be reforms out of this deal, such as like a third-party physical evaluation?
I do think a third-party physical evaluation would be the smartest thing here. Like just for every trade, like have everything above board. That way you don't have to worry about any team trying to skew the medicals. I think if you get a third-party medical evaluation, it clears up all the questions.
These are players. These are human beings. They do not deserve to be drawn into a third-party examination by somebody they have not consented to giving them an examination based off of the fact that their front office can't work out a deal and handle its business. I cannot disagree with this more. I am typically on the side of like, look, there's certain realities about being an NBA player. Like there's just certain realities about it. Like your body is your product. Like that's part of it. That's how you make your money. But there's got to be some level of humanity in here. I am never going to be on the side of you should force players to abdicate who has access to their medical records and examination based off of a trade they haven't consented to. I get it. You sign the contract, you consent to the fact that you can be traded. That's entirely different from this. To me, this is well beyond the reach of that. I don't think that that's the way to go here.
So, Matt, I'm curious about this. Do you then think they should not be physically evaluated at all? Or do you think that there's a sort of an inherent consent once you've been traded that the receiving team will get to physically evaluate you.
No, I think you've got to. I think you've got to be able to evaluate it, right? Because you've got to be able to make sure that there isn't a situation where a team is just outright lying to you. Because I mean, how can I put this? Danny Ainge exists, and so like you've got to be able to contain yourself. Like you've got to be able to make sure that that the player is physically able to perform the tasks, right? That you're not trading several first-round picks for a player with a blood clot, right? Those kind of concerns I think are reasonable. And that's like part of the business. And I get it. When we start getting into a third party evaluation, now you're being haggled over. And that to me leads into some extremely ugly comparisons. I just don't think that is the way to go here. I'm real hesitant to go down those kind of roads, but this is a specific situation. We don't see this often because most teams are professional enough to handle this, except for these two clowns trading barbs back and forth. Come on, guys, sort this out.
Yeah, it's interesting.
How did Rob get Luka Doncic? How did he do that?
That's what really, when we get down to the root of it, that's what it's about for Matt Moore. I think that just really quickly, I think teams should actually have a wide latitude to cancel trades. And I think the fact that we haven't seen a lot of trades get rescinded speaks to some of the sort of negative forces that allow that not to happen, because teams don't want to be seen as the team that reneges on a trade and impact their future ability to make trades. But when you're talking about medical stuff that can sometimes be messy, like two doctors can look at a situation and have different opinions about the long-term viability of a particular injury or the after effects of an injury, I think teams should actually have a wide latitude. I don't think that we should put a bunch of restrictions on what teams can say yes or no to.
But again, like, know what you're getting into. Like, there's ways to do this. That's why we don't see it. Like, know what you're getting into here, and like every team in the league should be like, we can't trust the Lakers. Like, we cannot trust the Lakers. They exchange that information. And instead, like, Nico Harrison's just going to be like, what else you want? You want Kyrie Irving for Austin Reeves? Let's go. And it's ridiculous.
Okay, we will update this story, and certainly Locked On Lakers. Check that out. Check out Locked On Hornets. We'll keep covering this story as well. Let's move on to the other side of that Luka AD deal. The Dallas Mavericks, in the second home game since the Luka AD trade, the Mavericks resumed showing fans on its Jumbotron after a one-game hiatus. That's right. First game back, they decided to show no fans on the Jumbotron. How did fans react? Let's go to Locked On Mavericks for that.
This game on the broadcast, you probably heard different times where there were boos they were heard out through the broadcast. One of them during a Kyrie free throw, which made no sense if you just thought it was during basketball. One of them, Patrick Dumont walking back to his seat, the governor of the Mavericks. Another one happened when a fan who was sitting across the way from me was escorted out because, and he earlier had been seen on the video board saying "Fire Nico" or mouthing the words "Fire Nico." There was a group of people right behind the section Cuban sits in. They were chanting "Fire Nico," and Mark Cuban stands up, turns around, and says, "Shut the F up" to these fans.
It's just embarrassing. It's embarrassing that it's going around that they're not putting fans on the Jumbotron, and the first time they do it, someone says "Fire Nico," and then they get kicked out of the stadium. No chants are allowed. I mean, you have to give the fans a space to let this stuff out. Like, it's going to fester. It's going to be there forever. And unfortunately, it's going to eventually come out on the players.
Okay, Hayes, agree or disagree with Locked On Mavericks there? Should fans be given the space to critique the team, or does the team have a responsibility or at least a right to control conduct in its own building?
I mean, I think that both can be true. Like, you want to control conduct, right? If they're doing something vulgar or over the top, then yeah. But I think fans should have the right to be able to air out and show and display their disgust and their upsetness with the team. I don't see what the problem is with that. Like, you can't allow, like, you want to embrace your fan base. Like, your fans are the reason why you have your checks. Make no mistake about it. Like, so the fans should get their voice, but you also can't do anything that's just over the top, like talking crazy to Nico Harrison publicly or anything like that.
Doug, the title of this show just has to be Clown Shoes. It just has to be. This is also Clown Shoes. What are we doing here? What, you can't hold up a sign that says "Fire Nico"? You traded Luka Doncic. What did you think was going to happen? There was nothing that crossed the line here. Like, there was nothing. They're not yelling at the players. We're not crossing any of those kind of barriers, right? The fans want the GM who traded Luka Doncic fired. What is unreasonable there? And just like, ultimately, fans have a right, I think, as part of the cultural ecosystem of the NBA. And like, teams don't agree with this. because they're clown shoes, but that like they have a right to express their displeasure with the organization. Detroit Lions fans wearing paper bags over their heads, right? You know, Bulls fans largely pretty much any time that they talk about the Bulls, like they have a right to express their displeasure with what's going on with the team. And so I just can't get there on that any of this merits taking somebody who paid for tickets and removing them from the premises because of like you want to control the message here. You think everybody's going to be like, oh no, it's fine, the Mavs are greater. No, this clown shoes. And
look at the history of controlling dissent in that way. It never works. It's the Streisand effect. You're calling attention. It just makes it worse. Hey, this was a close game that the Dallas Mavericks lost, 129-128. DeMar DeRozan scoring 42 points, turning back the clock. I don't know if you want to say anything about that. But this was a close loss, and Jason Kidd does not show up to the post-game press conference. Speaking of rare things, that doesn't happen very often. Anything to make of that, Matt?
So I want to extend. I don't know. Maybe it's possible that Kid was just like really upset and was just like, it's been too much of an emotional week, and I don't want to do this. I don't want to deal with this. He'll get fined. To me, though, that felt like a shot across the bow from Kid, who looked very sad and quiet during the post-trade presser. This to me feels like a further distancing himself from Nico Harrison. That's what it felt like to me. Very much. Jason Kidd is definitely looking out for old number one here and making sure everybody knows, like, wasn't my idea. I didn't want to be in this position, regardless of what his say was in the decision.
Hayes, last word. Where do the Mavericks go from here?
Can I say to hell on here? Can I say that? Is that allowed to be said on Locked On? Because I think that may be the place that this franchise is headed. Like, it's just been a comedy of errors. Like, AD's already hurt. Like, Kyrie's a free agent at the end of this year, right? He can be a free agent so he can get out of there. I don't know what Nico Harrison was thinking, because I think this just gets worse for them.
Okay, coming up on Locked On NBA, we've spent a lot of time in the Western Conference. We'll turn our attention to the Eastern Conference. Is there an Eastern Conference team outside of the top three that could make a challenge to the Knicks, the Cavs, the Celtics? I will turn that question over to Matt and Hayes on the other side. Thanks again for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Locked On NBA hosts from each conference get together each week for our Locked On NBA squad shows. And this week, we had an interesting conversation on the East squad show about which teams, if any, outside the top three could make a postseason run and why it might be the Indiana Pacers. The Pacers have beaten good teams this year, but they've also lost to bad teams, and a lot of that inconsistency can be traced back to the offensive aggressiveness or lack thereof from Tyrese Halliburton. Let's listen in on Locked On Pacers as Tony East discusses what's powering the Halliburton roller coaster.
It seems very clear in all those games that he has a matchup that A, is like what you said, not physical, and B, lets him do well at not the expense of others. Like, I do think there's a matchup element to this. On one hand, it's good that he can do that. On the other hand, a lot of stars aren't matchup dependent, right? So there's a lot to that to say, yes, they're very good when he shoots a lot. There's another thing to say, he shoots a lot because he's allowed to do so. There are games where legitimately at the end you go, man, he took 8 shots and they lost by 4 and they couldn't get it going in crunch time. If only he could have. Like, if he started trying to get himself going earlier, he could have figured out where those spots were. And there are other games where just someone else, mostly Siakam, sometimes Mather, and sometimes Nembhard, sometimes Turner, just steady diet, jumper, they're wide open. Halliburton got him going. And I don't know that he'll ever be like he should take 17, 18, 19, 20 shots every kind of game kind of player. Maybe, but this is the lowest per game shot total he's had in a full season with the Pacers.
All right, so what do you make of all of that, Matt? Tyrese Halliburton, interesting season for him. Do we consider him in the star category anymore? I think a lot of folks were looking at him as somebody that was maybe ascending to superstar status. And is the oscillation of his offensive aggressiveness, is that holding the Pacers back from being competitive in the Eastern Conference?
Yeah, a little bit, I think. I think on the star stuff, I just think everybody really hated the fact that he jumped up there, in part because I think he beat the Knicks. Like, everyone's just like, but we wanted the Knicks. And like, sorry, don't get your tryhards in the conference finals. But like, when I look at Indiana, I think a lot of this, I see Nash and Halliburton so much. And Nash had this same problem. And Nash has said in subsequent years, I should have shot more. And I think that Nash wanted to set the table for everybody. And I think that's what Halliburton wants to do. He hasn't learned to shape the game, to control the game, to really own it and hold it the way that you need to if you're going to be the guy for a team yet. He still defers way too much because I think he doesn't want to be that guy yet. He's got to understand that he has to be that guy for them to be as good as they're going to be. That to me is the big key here. It's not about the matchups or any of those kind of things, because I've seen him take over late in games versus tough defense and make killer shots. For me, Hayes, it's about him understanding he's 24. He's got lots of time over the next 6 years learning how to be the best player in the offensive engine of an elite team consistently.
And that's what I was going to jump into, is that he's only 24 years old. Like, I know he's been in the league. Well, this is his 5th year now in the league, but like, he is only 24 years old. He still has a lot of career left ahead of him. And he is still learning, right? He's been on, different teams. What he was on at the start of this Indiana run is very different from the role he has now on it. So he has to learn to be that guy, to be comfortable being that guy. And I understand as a point guard, feeling more comfortable facilitating. But I think Halliburton, it can be so dangerous at times. We've seen him when he's gotten in that zone. Once he understands that that's a player that he has to be for this team to really go as far as they want to go, unless the roster changes a little bit more, or Ben Mathurin or somebody else steps up, that's where that team is going to be dangerous at. So he has a lot of time left to learn. Watch him over the next couple of years. But, yeah, he's not that guy yet. But I do see it in him that he can be that guy.
So, Hayes, when you look at the Eastern Conference playoff race, do you see a team, maybe the Bucks, the Pistons, maybe the Pacers? Which team has the best chance at taking down one of the top three in the postseason?
I'll go with the Milwaukee Bucks because they still got Giannis. They still got Dame. I think that depending on the matchup, that's still a team, and we've seen them kicking into another gear defensively, that I could see them getting hot for a playoff run or a playoff series. They don't have to worry about Jimmy Butler anymore, that they can do something that shocks one of the upper echelon teams in the East. So I'd pick the Milwaukee Bucks if I'm going to pick any. I still think it's a slim chance, but I'd pick the Bucks.
I'm going to go with the Pacers. I just think that they cause havoc. And I do kind of think that because of the run last year, they're particularly well suited to get in there and be like, no, once again, nobody's paying attention to how good we are. Once again, nobody thinks that we're anything to worry about. And we play a breakneck style. People do not understand how good Pascal Siakam is. He has been so freaking good. They have lineup versatility. They have a lot of things that they can do. And guess what? They've snuck into top 20 in defense. And it's like, woohoo. But I'm telling you, this offense has underperformed relative to what we know they're capable of. If they get going, I just think the Pacers can be agents of chaos in the East.
All right, let's move on to the LA Clippers. They were one of the first teams to strike in the buyout market, acquiring Ben Simmons. Was it worth it? Locked On Clippers host Darian Vaziri makes the case.
In my opinion, it's worth the swing, and here's why. He's still a guy that can pass. He's still a guy that can push the ball, that can initiate your offense, and most importantly, that can defend. In my opinion, in 2021, his best attribute to the Sixers wasn't even his playmaking and his passing. It was his defending. He was becoming an all-NBA defender. It's an upgrade to an already great defensive team that's second in the league in defensive rating. You add another huge body out there with length and athleticism. You imagine the lineup with Ben Simmons, Chris Dunn, Kawhi, Nico, and Derek. Imagine the bodies flying around. You got Ben Simmons with his 7-foot wingspan. You got the longest arms in Nico Batum. You got Kawhi Leonard. You got Chris Dunn flying all over the place. I mean, the possibilities defensively are going to make Jeff Van Gundy and Ty Lue salivate in terms of the switchability with that.
By the way, shout out to Darian Vaziri, back after a month off dealing with the effects of the LA wildfires. So glad to see him back in action. That was his first episode back, so very cool. Matt, what do you think of acquiring Ben Simmons? Are you as high on that acquisition as Darian was there?
I think it's fine. It's worth a shot. I don't think there's any sort of real cost. They lost Terrence Mann as a wing defender. So the biggest thing is Simmons can defend. He's got great athletic. That hasn't really gone away. He hasn't lost a step on that end. He's still physical. He's still long. He's still got the ability to really be disruptive. You've got enough shooting and stuff there where he can act as a secondary playmaker, third playmaker. They've got so many weapons, right? So again, I've talked about this on the show all the time, these different lineups you can put together. You can have Harden and Powell and Bogdanovich with Ben Simmons at 4. That's really good, even if you don't have Kawhi out there. You have all these different options you can put out there to compensate for Simmons' offensive struggles, we'll say, but he's still a very good passer. I think it's worth a shot. I just don't think it's any sort of like, this is going to be the difference. Maybe it will be, but it's more of, okay, yeah, I can see it. It could help.
Hayes, I know you're big on the Clippers. What do you think?
I mean, it's a okay move. I mean, it's low cost, low risk move for them. You have Ben Simmons in. I think what they have to what Darren said is that as far as like the versatile length that they have there defensively, it could help them, especially they're looking at playoff series, right? They're looking at the mind now and this, and how does it help create mismatches in the playoffs? And Ben Simmons can do that. No matter how I view Ben Simmons as a player and the Clippers as an organization, more so their fan base and the organization, like it adds something to it. So low risk, potential high reward, I guess, and we'll see what they get out of.
How about James Harden? He was selected by the coaches to be a reserve in the Western Conference. I don't know if that was necessarily expected, but he is doing some great work there for the Clippers.
Legacy.
Want to shout out Harden.
Legacy. Kyrie got in too. I think Harden's been good, right? But it's just like, there's a certain amount of, this is why the all-star stuff for legacy and like resume things, I think is really weird because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you're a big star, even if you're not having all that great of a season, you get in anyway because everybody knows you. Those selections are always a little bit wonky to me, but I do think that Harden's been very good for them this season. So it's been Norman Powell, most improved player, is probably a conversation we got to have at some point.
Yeah, there's definitely conversation that should be had. And yeah, James Harden has had a perfectly fine season. He's gone back to being that high volume, kind of low efficiency at times, but his ability to distribute and play point guard for them has been really good for them.
And here's a fun stat from the LA Clippers. James Harden, Norm Powell, and Ivica Zubac scored 20-plus points each for the 11th game this season on February 9th, more than any other trio in the NBA this season. And they say the big three is dead. My Clippers. Let's go. If you like what you heard today, make sure to subscribe to Locked On NBA wherever you get podcasts, including on YouTube, where you can watch the squad shows. You can also get those on your local feeds as well. Thanks so much for making Locked On NBA your first listen. Thanks to Matt and Hayes for sharing their expertise. Enjoy tonight's action. We're almost there. The All-Star break is soon upon us. Be kind to each other. We'll see you right back here on Wednesdays. Locked On NBA.
Clown!